I know I mentioned how excited I am for No Rest the Wicked, but one of the reasons why I'm so excited for this game is specifically because of the combat. And I scoured the internet for a bit of footage of the different combat styles available to a player, just because there are some questions, there are some things that I don't know, some things that I do know, and one of the things I noticed in watching several playthroughs and of watching just some basically recap of people's time with the pre-release or whatever they called it, is that some of the things were played a lot. Like one-handers were the most common play style, like a one-hander with a shield, and then players had a bit more experimenting out from that. And one of the play styles we basically saw nothing of, which was the bow builds, which as a Path of Exile player, and I'm sure many people who play ARPGs, that's like a staple. So there's some questions that I hope to get answered in a week's time when the pre-release or beta, or I don't, gosh, I can't keep track of what they're calling it, but yeah, we're seeing some of the footage from the one-handers. Like we have the one-handed mace, the one-handed sword. I'm not completely certain about the difference. Like we see a variety of animations with the different weapons, and so likely there is some nuance, perhaps to the damage and the relationship between the damage and like the animation time, which is something that gets me excited for a role-playing game. Like that's something I didn't necessarily imagine we'd get when we're so used to, role-playing games like Path of Exile or Last Epoch being the standard. And then something that sort of gets my Scottish blood flowing is the two-handed swords. Like this just looks, first of all, the animations just look out of this world. Like not only that, but like the timing of it just feels like such a physical, I know it's like obviously artistic, but just the physical nature of a two-handed sword, like it just looks amazingly fun. Maybe not hardcore viable. I'm sure I'll be running around with a sword and shield and just trying to survive, but something that I'm sure I will play with at least several runs. I'm not sure what this is. Looks like some massive staff. I don't know if that's related to magic or if there are some alternatives to the two-handed sword. I imagine there's going to be axes, right? Like, I don't know. I think we've seen a little bit of footage of a one-handed axe. I think that's not just for cutting down trees. Then we have magic. And, like, the first time I saw this, like, having the ability to blink in an animation-based combat is like such a massive advantage, right? You see your opponent start their animation, you can blink out of the way, and then we have something like this, like the nuke. I know I mentioned this in my last video about No Rest for the Wicked, but there's the footage of it. It's just gorgeous. Now, like I mentioned before, there's just so little footage of bow-based combat. Like I was clicking through this guy's playthrough, and there's like he just doesn't use his bow. It's maddening. So either he used it and it was just like garbage damage or whatever, and he thought it was useless, and then basically never used it again, or there's something I'm missing here where it's like maybe it's a difficulty in using the controls or whatnot. But he had a bow. He played through the game and basically didn't use the bow, which was so frustrating. So that's one of the things I'm most excited about is, obviously the magic just looks amazing, and then the bow is something I'm like obviously as bows have an innate advantage. Like ranged combat has been such a, I don't know how you say it, like it breaks the game, right? Like just being able to fight from a distance is a huge advantage that I don't know if a role-playing game has really been able to contend with that problem. I think Path of Exile 2 is making a lot of inroads in this discussion of ranged and melee and finding some kind of balancing act between the two. But I'm really excited for bow builds. I'm sure other Path of Exile players are super excited for bow builds and just cruising through the game, through the end game system that's really all I have to say for today. I'm just so hyped for the combat. We are a week out. Um, yeah, stay tuned. There will be more No Rest of the Wicked in no time.